Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast, talking about all things in development. Frank just got Xcode, GitHub Copilot. How's it going, Frank?
It's a brand new world. Do you remember when IntelliSense first came out? And I think I got made fun of because people said I couldn't code. Well, here I am now on a coding podcast. Hi, James.
Hello.
It's good to be with you. But I can't code without IntelliSense. And now I can't code without Copilot. But now I can code with Copilot in Xcode. This is the biggest announcement ever. No longer do I have to remember Swift syntax for creating a variable. It's var, I think. Yeah, probably. Copilot will just do it for me. Thank you, Copilot.
Yeah. There was GitHub Universe this last week and big Apple events, and a bunch of things got released. So we're going to do our best today to talk about both topics. Let's first start with GitHub Universe. Now, I watched the keynote. Did you watch any of GitHub Universe, Frank?
James, I did not. Sorry, bad reporter over here, but I am excited to get your report from the trenches.
I was not in San Francisco there live, but I was watching remotely. I watched that, and then I also watched Amanda Silver, who is our head of the PMs and developer division, design, all the stuff. She owns all the stuff, right? Like Julia is like dev div, developer division, and all things, and then Amanda is PM. So Amanda is my VP, and Amanda is super awesome. And I don't know her. She's awesome. She's been at Microsoft for like ever. It's great. So like under Amanda, right, would be like .NET, VS Code, the Copilot, all these things, right? So a lot of things happened. Like first, like just Copilot in general got all sorts of goodies inside of VS Code. So I got multi-file editing, which is super cool. So for example, they showed a demo on stage, which was like, hey, I need to add this bar chart graph thing, and it created a bunch of new files, edited a bunch of files all online. That's cool. There's ways now to do code reviewing with GitHub Copilot, like not only in VS Code, but also like on GitHub. So like once you do a PR, that's super cool. A lot of people apparently, and you need to tell me this, they made a big deal of this, which is multimodal support inside of it, which is that you can now choose, for example, to use Claude or Gemini or something else, multimodal. Oh, it could be multimodal. That'd be cool. Multimodal. Sonnet, Gemini, O1 preview.
It's so funny because I read it as modal also. It's because multimodal. It's just a phrase we use constantly. Multi-model. You can use different models. You can pay for different models from different model sources. It's cool. I think I've been very happy with Copilot, like I was saying before, so I haven't felt a need to switch to different models. But I do know for a fact that Claude is quite impressive. So if you're paying for a more powerful model out there than OpenAI's, then you probably do want to use it. So awesome. It's strange that is it still under the Copilot banner? So that's it's good for them. They don't have to pay for the server. keep using Copilot, but they don't have to run the query. Good for them. But yeah, I think that's a good thing, especially because I don't know, there weren't that many options before either. I think I would OpenAI's been so reliable that I think I always just pick the biggest, smartest model whenever given the choice. But maybe there's a reason to pick the cheaper ones. I don't know. Pick the most expensive one, everyone. You deserve intelligence.
I think I don't want to pick. I think I just wanted to do it. So, but yeah. I understand that people are opinionated, so it's like, here you go. I guess there's bigger context windows maybe that can be shoved.
Sure. Gemini, for instance, is a giant model that can handle giga characters. I don't know. I've forgotten the number is so big what it can handle these days. Gemini is very powerful. Yeah, if you want to give it your entire code base, that's a great model for that kind of stuff. For example, I've been using the free tier of Cloud, and the free tier, I think, allows up to about a text message worth of text. So my conversations end quite rapidly with Claude because I refuse to pay for the more expensive one so far. Whereas Gemini, I've uploaded files to it that took a few minutes to upload, and it's just like reading your file, buddy.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, if that works, that's great. I'm all about it. I'm more excited about improved C# experiences in Visual Studio and soon VS Code, which the team announced that GitHub Copilot completions are automatically considered semantic relevant C# files as additional context, even if they're not open in the editor, which means that it takes the context of your solution, which is pretty cool.
Honestly, I feel like it was kind of doing that already. It always shocked me. Yeah, so I'm curious what new boundary has been drawn, because I've always actually been impressed by how well it's known my code. And I don't know if that's just because I jump around between 100 different files, but if it's been programmed to properly read solution files and things like that, that's different. So where it's actively seeking out files versus it just kind of absorbs them out of the ether. I don't know about you. Like back when I used Visual Studio for Mac, I was very concrete about having a good solution that had perfect project layout and that kind of stuff. These days, I tend to open projects like one VS Code window per project. And I just bounce between the windows. It's kind of horrendous, but I just don't use solution files as much as I used to anymore. Or if I do have one, it tends to be for builds.
Nice. Yeah. I feel like this Copilot announcement, there's like so many little things in here that there's stuff that I've like wanted, like obviously I want always better C# support, stuff like that, but they also have like this code review thing, which I skipped over and talked about earlier. But you do a PR and Copilot, you can add it to the PR and it'll just like review your code for you.
Have you ever done one of those? I haven't. That is a brave frontier I haven't dared tread on. I would love to hear feedback from listeners and viewers. All I can imagine is the worst case where it's just so nitpicky and it's like, here's 800 different suggestions on how to improve your code. Oh wow, I just realized how much of a narcissist I am, because I was going to ask you, have you ever done this? Have you ever written a nice piece of code and then sent it to an AI and asked it like, hey, how's this code? And it's like, good job, buddy. Oh, I do it all the time.
Oh, wow.
That's how I realized I'm such a narcissist. If I write a good piece of code and I think it works, but it was still kind of a complicated piece of code, I select the whole buffer and I paste it into an AI and I'm like, review this code. Let me know if you see anything stupid.
Oh, smart.
I do manual code reviews, I guess, that way. It's really tedious. It's terrible. But I love the pat on my back when it's like, no, your code's great, buddy. And I'm like, yeah, my code is great. I'm worried. And so that's been my experience with code reviews. It's a very manual process. I'm a little bit nervous about it being integrated with GitHub, with it being very pedantic or something like that. But I guess we'll find out. I'd love to hear people's experience.
I'll be really fascinated. We do, for the .NET blog, for example, it runs on GitHub. Like it's all the markdown gets converted into like the system. There's like a sync process that happens. But we write everything in Markdown that gets synced like later on through like a service that we provide. Some team builds that's like awesome. But there's a lot of manual reviews. So I'm interested if we can enable Copilot like on the blogs. Like, will it give us all this recommendation for like code snippets and like, like, hey, I want to rewrite like your grammar and like fix your typos. Like that would be really cool if it could give suggestions for getting rid of human review of that stuff.
You were making fun when I was talking about Apple Intelligence reviewing my grammar. You're like, we've had that in Teams forever, and now you want it in GitHub. Yeah, we all want grammar fixers, of course.
Yeah. GitHub Copilot available in Xcode. So I'm just going through the change log. It's available in Xcode. You got some ghost text. How'd that feel? Good?
James, that was the hardest setup procedure I've ever gone through for an extension.
Apple. Classic Apple.
I don't know how VS Code has made extensions so lovely. Like they're good in Visual Studio. They're good in Rider. In
Yeah.
VS Code, they're lovely. Extensions flow in, they flow out. It's a one. We did a whole episode on extension, maybe 2 episodes. We like them so much. This was the opposite experience, but look, all that matters is I have Copilot and Xcode now. That's whatever pain I had to go through, and it was a lot of pain, James. Do you know that I had to give full control of my computer to the GitHub Copilot? That little frog better know what it's doing. That's all I'm saying.
An Octo cat with goggles on, Frank. Also, GitHub Copilot is now available in Windows Terminal. Boom. I'm actually pretty excited about that. I will use that because I'm not a terminal person. That's pretty cool.
I want that so much, James. I'm a little bit jealous. It's on Windows Terminal, not Mac Terminal. Come on, GitHub people. Could you imagine Apple's extension? They don't have an extension mechanism. You'll have to give they'll have to like create a virtual keyboard device or something.
To do it. Terrifying. They'll have to create their own terminal.
Yeah. So congratulations to Microsoft or whoever put an extension mechanism in terminal that enabled Copilot to do this. And congratulations to GitHub.
Dude,
I'm a little jelly for that one.
Windows Terminal is like really good. It's like real good. It's like, and I'm not even a terminal person, but it's like real good.
Well, the Mac one works. It just doesn't predict every whim.
It's pretty good. All right. Frank, GitHub Spark. I'm going to read this to you. In the pursuit of GitHub's vision to reach 1 billion developers today at Universe, they introduced GitHub Spark, an AI native tool to build applications entirely in natural language. Sparks are fully functional micro apps that can generate or can integrate AI features and external data sources without requiring any management of cloud resources. Utilizing a creativity feedback loop, users start with an initial prompt, see live previews of their app as it's built, easily see options for each of their requests, and automatically save versions of each iteration so they can compare versions as they go. For example, you could give it a prompt that says, with a little inspiration, create flashcard app to help me learn Spanish, and it will generate code and give you a flashcard game. You may want to change that and say, oh, what would this look like in GPT 4.0? And you could say, can you give the cards like different titles and images and icons and different things? And then you can iterate in different languages, and you could ask it to do things in Spanish or add different languages to it, for example, and it will do it for you.
Yeah. Good. Finally, we can retire, James. We're done. Software development as a career has now been usurped. The robots can do it. We're good. No, that's hyperbole, but maybe give it 20 years, 10, 20 years. I'll give it 20 years. I've been waiting for this since we did our first AI episode on GPT-3 something, when I was very first impressed with it. The very first thing I had it doing was generating XAML code for UIs. Yeah. I'm like, I want an app that has this kind of UI, generate it for me. And people have been taking different stabs at this for a while because obviously these networks are really good at this. The problem is creating the right kind of user interface. It is a time-honored tradition in computers to try to create end-user programmable software.
Yeah.
It is a honorable goal. Someday it will be achieved. The proof is in the pudding. I love their mission statement, goal statement, vision statement, whichever one it was, of 1 billion developers. What they're saying is end user programmability, to use a 1970s term.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think that there are I'm just pull a number out of the top. 80% of websites could probably be generated by an AI. Apps are harder. Apps have logic. Apps codify processes and things like that. There's an old joke in software. If you write an upfront spec, it's easy to implement software because then you're just cranking it out. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. you're writing the functional spec for the app, and hopefully it's going to pop something out. I should say I have zero experience with the Spark thing. I have no idea if it's any good or not. I know these types. I've written these types. These have been around. So I'm excited to see how this one is, and maybe they will crack it finally.
Yeah, I'm really interested too. I haven't looked at it too much, but I'm be curious if eventually you get to actually also like see the code, right? Like what is it like a React app or is it something else?
I hope so.
Like,
no, you don't think so? You think they're hiding it all in the background? I mean, ideally, the way I always want to see these apps is it really is just code, and you're just constantly yelling at it to change the code. No, make the database bigger. No, I want a revision system. No, more blue. You're just the worst boss on the planet. And that's how we all want to write software, I guess. We'll find out.
I've been noticing in the AI stuff that I've been using, Copilot, for example, is you now, for example, let's say I'm writing a paragraph and I click rewrite, right? Kind of like Grammarly has this word, has this Copilot, all this stuff. Apple Intelligent has like, give me the thing. You can like specify, like, do you want it? Like, here's some options that you might want, maybe friendly or maybe this, maybe whatever. But there's also an option now that's like, hey, here are like 3 or 4 options for you to rewrite your sentence. We fixed all your typos and all this stuff, like rearrange it, looks, different contexts. And then it literally has a box that's like, what do you want changed in this? So for example, you could say, oh, I don't want to use the word we, I want to use I and make it more about XYZ. Mm-hmm. And it'll like iterate on it. So instead of it just being like a box, it's like, hey, this is contextual saying this thing. So I think this Spark is like, hey, this is contextual to this program. How do you want to change it? What do you want to do? And I'll be interested if that starts to get integrated deeper into some of the other Copilot things, right? Like, hey, here's this code sample. What do you want to do? Blah, blah, blah. I feel like sometimes with the chat, it's almost, it feels too open to me. You're not having a string of conversation. Whereas it's like, oh, here's this ghost text that pops up. What do you think of this? Right? Like, what do you want to change this? You want to do a thing? So I'll be fascinated to see if other sorts of like, I call it massaging, and to massage the code, right? What that looks like in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard problem, that interaction problem, because even though I find so much benefit out of these things, sorry, I don't want to make this the intelligence argument again, but it's still it's still a manual process. I have to keep telling it, I want a text box here, I want a thing here, I want this. If you know how to program, it's quicker sometimes to just program it, than to write out the 300 sentences you need to get this thing to actually just be what you want. Yeah. It might be easier to just write the XAML code yourself, things like that. Sort of these weird lines. And where I was going with the intelligence thing is, intelligence is when it's a little more proactive. I don't need to tell it everything. It's intelligent when I'm vague and it nails it the first time. That's when we deem something intelligent. It's not intelligent if I have to put 10,000 sentences to write something app. So we'll see. It's that line. It's how much do I have to do versus how smart is it? And it just has good defaults, we used to say.
Yeah. Well, it was truly the week of GitHub Copilot, but it was also the week of the Mac, Frank. It's been a week of Mac. Apple came out. I said, you know what, Mac? You just don't get one event. You get 3 short YouTube videos.
And I missed every single one of them, James. We were talking about this in the pre-show, talking to the Patreon folks. And it turns out it was a very cute marketing strategy. I believe you used that term, but it went straight over my head, as in I completely missed it. And it wasn't until very late in the game that I found out there even was an Apple event. And then I went and watched the video. So cute. Hey, look, I'm just happy there's a Mac event. But
3 of them. Apple,
just throw 3, the normal
Frank.
Party.
There's 3 Mac events. You just didn't get 1. You got 3. No, I mean, I like this idea. What they decided to do is they said, hey, we're doing 3 days of Mac reveals, right? In 20 minutes each day, you get a new thing about Mac. Maybe they're like, hey, everyone's attention span is short. I don't know. The upside of this is that you kind of get this week of Mac. You're like, whoa, Mac is here. Announcement, new announcement. Every day there's something new. The downside of it is that one, you kind of it's not like you're bookmarking a time in a place that there's this thing. And then the other downside of it is that, what's the other downside of it? I guess that's the only downside of it. Is like there was something else in my mind.
There was just no word of mouth. So somehow you said YouTube recommended it to you. YouTube did not bother to recommend it to me. And for whatever the announcements were, we'll get into them. I'm actually very excited. It just didn't penetrate my Twitter universe either. So yeah. I think that's the problem with not having the big event.
I think so too. It's hard. I mean, I got lucky that I got the first one, and then I was like, okay, and then they were like, hey, there's this. I know the other downside. The other downside is that they announced 3 different devices, and I like that they each built upon each other. The problem is because each event was separate, they had to do 2 things 3 times, which was right. They needed to, 1, describe the M4 processor over and over and over again, and they needed to describe Apple Intelligence and how it works over and over again. So the downside of, hey, these are like, 3 similar family devices that have these specific features that they want to talk about, which is the M4 and also Apple Intelligence. Because these videos can be watched completely separately, you can't assume that people understand the M4 processor and Apple Intelligence. So literally 5 to 6 minutes of each video, which are 18 minutes each, are all describing the M4 processor and Apple Intelligence. And there's a private thing, your data's safe, there's an independent code audit. No one cares, Apple. Like it is what it is. We get it. Hello, Apple Intelligence.
We care, but that's why we pay the Apple tax. We just assume you're taking care of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we care. We care, Apple. But again, kind of like watching it over and over again, I was like, oh, okay. Let's start with day one. Day one, Frank. Monday, a week ago, if you were listening to this, new Mac, and that's it. No iMac Pro, just new iMac.
No, yeah, that part got me a little bit nervous. I'll be honest, because iMac is at the top of the website too. It's the first thing you see. Beautiful colors. iMac continues to impress in colors. Good computer, excellent computer. Not quite for me, but I do have to check the new ones because the old ones you couldn't spec up very good. So yeah, no Pro. I love my Pro. I'm a Pro user. But they haven't made an iMac Pro in a very long time. So I'm curious to see where the iMac can be spec'd up to, but I still don't think it's quite the computer. It's tricksy because they top out at 24-inch screens, and I think it's an excellent computer to start off with, but if you're a developer, I don't think it's a developer machine.
No, it's a M4 only processor. This is the everyday computer, up to 32 gigs of memory. The one big takeaway, if you take one thing away from this announcement in all 3 days, the big takeaway is not the M4 processor, Frank. It's not Apple Intelligent. It is that Apple has officially extinguished. They've officially extinguished. They put it out to pasture. 8 gigs as a default. It's gone. No more 8 gig models. The default 16 gigs, baby. You know why? Because it's basically required for Apple Intelligence, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
you can now buy a device with under 16 gigs now, which is fantastic. Good work, Apple.
You can get the models to run on an 8 gigabyte device, but it's a little, it's better to have more.
Yeah.
If they're going to tout it, it's kind of funny in the neural network space. It all started out about CPU and horsepower and how many flops and glops and how many, just how many of these things can you do at a time. Nowadays, it's just about memory. And we'll get into that for the other computers too. But good on you, Apple, because absolutely no one deserved that 8 gigabyte machine.
Yeah.
That said, they do cap out, I believe. I don't know the iMac cap, but
32.
There are caps. Okay.
32.
It does stop there.
So that's the biggest you can get if you want to go all in on it, which is all in. You can spec it up to a 32 gig. You get a terabyte, obviously. That's going to run you with the upgraded processor. $2,300 for that puppy. That includes all the mice and keyboard and all.
Still a nice machine,
device.
though. It's a nice screen, nice device.
Yeah. You remember, we have an M1 in our MacBook Air. This is 3 times better.
This is why I'm so excited for what we'll eventually get to, because I've been using an M1 Air, and we'll just use that as the baseline. You and I both obsess over this machine. It's the
great machine.
Best computer I've ever bought.
It's fantastic.
For its price and size and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. And if it's 4 times better than the M1, I don't think it's 4 times better, but
yeah,
if it's at all better.
Well, I'll say this. They did sneak in on day 3 the last little bit and piece, which is the MacBook Air now, lowest model, 16 gigs. You can't buy an 8 gig anymore. Not allowed.
Good.
Very good. It's good.
I don't. There's pictures on Twitter sometimes with people with those 8 gigabyte models. I'm so sorry if you've had to use one.
You can get a MacBook Air, 13 inches, M3 processor, 16 gigs of RAM, half a terabyte, $1,300. Great deal. Great device. All right, let's get to the real thing. Because the iMac, it looks exactly the same. We'll get to the MacBook Pro, it looks exactly the same. The big puppy, which is the smallest of puppies, tiny little puppy, right? It's so cute. You go to the shelter, like, I like the puppy, it's so cute. What if I told you that Apple somehow has taken an entire M4 Pro device, added a bunch of ports on the front of the device, and they shrunk the device down to the size of an Apple TV. That's right. The Mac Mini is truly finally mini, and it is 5 inches by 5 inches. And that's it.
That's absurd.
It is almost inappropriate. It is almost inappropriately small.
What about, we both had the dev model of the M1, the old Mac Mini M1.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? Wasn't
good
old days.
Yeah.
Those were great machines. Those were fine machines. And it always felt like, even every time I picked that thing up, that it was hollow.
Yeah.
Like, what is actually in here? Is this pure? I never opened it up because it was a dev machine, but I always was curious. Like, was there just a tiny little iPhone processor just sitting inside of there or something like that? Well, they did it. They decided to just close all the air gaps, which makes me a little bit nervous because they keep talking about the giant processor, another version of it you can get put into it. 5 inches, no air movement in there. There's going to be a tiny little fan sucking up air through the bottom, I guess.
Underneath.
Good luck. That's how the minis have always done it, but I know they also get clogged, and mine used to make the most terrible whine you've ever heard in your whole life. So the thing is, when things are bigger, they're easier to manufacture, and little errors in the manufacturing process don't accumulate. When things are tiny, the errors accumulate. This is all just saying, I'm very excited for this computer, but I'm a little bit nervous about why they have to feel the need to jam everything into a tiny little size. It's going to be awesome, though. I can't wait for my little hockey puck computer.
It is like the cutest device in the world, though. Let's just be honest about it. You know what I mean? Like, while I'm worried about all the things you just said, it is like the cutest tiny device. And it starts with a minimum of 16 gigs of a unified memory for $600, Frank.
That is a great price. You were getting a very powerful computer for $600. Like, I spent $100 on a Raspberry Pi.
That's crazy.
Is it worth 6 Raspberry Pis? Probably.
Yeah.
That's a good price. I'm curious if they're going to overheat and if they'll work in the server rooms or not, but we'll find out. It's kind of surprising because there's the Mac Studio, and I think, at least I wasn't sure which one are they going to be progressing with. Are they going to keep improving the Mac Studio, perhaps, or are they ever going to update the Mac Mini? So it was really surprising for me to see that they updated the Mac Mini, put in the tiny shell, and somehow squeezed 2 little USB-C ports onto the front there. I'm worried this thing is going to be so small and light, like you can't press a port into it. You're going to have to anchor it down. You're going to have to put a vice grip on it.
Put a paperweight on top.
Yeah, it's going to be so small and light and no airflow.
I love this device. Like, I want to replace my huge desktop that I have right now with this device. It has 5 USB ports, which is probably not enough for what I need, but maybe it is. I don't know. Who needs as many as I need? But it is like, it's really good. Now, that being said, if I was going to buy one to replace my desktop, I'd probably want the M4 Pro, which is going to come in a little bit higher than $600. That puppy is going to come in at
$400 upgrade, $500 upgrade.
Okay, it comes with base 24 gigs unified memory. I'd probably get to 148 or to 164.
Well, can I tell you, I don't want to bore everyone with Frank's purchasing decisions and that kind of stuff.
$2,000.
But we've talked about these kinds of machines for a long time now, and it was hard to find the sweet spot with these machines because you could get Mac Studio properly, fully upgraded, call that around $3,500. But that it's a year or two old now, when you're buying something new. You don't want to buy something old, and I kept debating whether they're Apple events or anything like that. Anyway, I think this machine is a wonderful sweet spot. Yeah. It's a modern processor. You can't upgrade it as much as you could upgrade the Mac Studio. You could get the Mac Studio up to some ridiculous, like 96 gigabytes of RAM. This thing, I believe, tops out at 64 gigabytes with the Pro processor in it. But you know what? That's a nice little sweet spot. 64 honestly is plenty. The 96 was being absurd so that I could train neural networks and do absurd things. Truly absurd. I would use it very rarely. Honestly, even 32. I very rarely use 32. So the 64, I believe, I think it's worth the upgrade. It's a pretty penny. I don't know why Apple charges so much for RAM. Honestly, when they were announcing all this stuff in the videos, all I kept saying in the back of my head is, are they going to increase the price of their RAM? Because their RAM is already so expensive. I think the RAM upgrade that I want to do for it, I think it's like $600 or something like that. Yeah. But you know what? These are tiny 5-inch enclosed machines, and you'll never be able to upgrade them ever. So gotta do it. Gotta bite the bullet.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, I do look at my, my big tower, and I got like a nice NVIDIA GPU, and I got like a bunch of RAM. I can upgrade. I can do other stuff over time. But yeah, you got to put in your decision first. So, if you're looking at this Mac Mini, it's a serious machine. You could get the $600 machine, and it'd be a nice, powerful little machine. But for me, it's like, okay, long-term longevity, I probably want more RAM. I want this stuff. Probably me, I'm going to try to figure out how to run, Windows on it, run like a bunch of other stuff on it too, right? So it's like, I probably want it to be spec'd out. But that being said, like, it's a pretty nice little device,
Yeah, well, again, going back to, I've been using an M1 Air as my dev machine for the last year now. So I'm pretty sure the $600 Mac Mini would outclass it in every way. The only place it won't outclass it, and remember the Apple tax, everyone. You got to pay for the big hard drive, because I got a good, I forgot what year I bought it now. We'll call it 5 or 6 years out of my last iMac that I spent a lot of money on. So I hope to get another 5 years out of this machine. And we'll see. The reason I keep bringing up the overheating is because I want it to last 5 years. Please, Apple, have put a good fan in that thing. It's so small. Why is it so small?
I'm excited about it. It's going to happen. All right. The last thing that happened is we got new MacBook Pros and finally the M4 Max. It is maximum power. It's so max power. If you want all the power, 128 gigs of RAM. You're looking at a minimum of like $5,000 for this laptop. It's it's the Max chip. It's the chip of all the chips. It's Pro. It's Pro. It's the Pro.
I believe that one probably is 4 times better than our M1 Airs.
Yes,
that one probably is. Yeah. You've got to pay $4,000 for it. But boy, if you got that $4,000 or $5,000, whatever it's going to take, go for it. Because what are you going to do with 128 gigabytes of RAM? I don't know. You're going to tell your friends you have it. That's what you're going to do. And the rest of the time, Do you remember in PCs in the old days how to do the memory check every time the PC was
Yeah.
booting up?
Yeah.
And every time you upgraded your computer and put more RAM in it, that would take longer and longer. You're like, got me 8 megabytes of RAM in this puppy.
Do you remember when you used to have to? You remember you used to have to defrag your computer? Do you remember defragging?
You probably should still defrag, but yeah.
Can I defrag?
There is some out there. Yeah, modern file systems don't love it, but you can still do it.
Optimize drive. You can optimize your drives. Oh, I'm gonna totally do this.
I believe there's like a modern Windows app that'll do this, and I think that there's a mockery of that modern Windows app that has the old UI because we all love that.
The old UI was so good. Here's a fun thing: in Windows 11, at least, it just does it every week. It's like, cool, just got you. I'm just gonna keep optimizing.
Modern file systems, they were designed for the fragmentation problem because we just keep making more files. So it was better to solve that problem than keep writing defraggers.
Okay. Now beyond this, obviously they spend a lot of time with these new machines, all three of them, talking about Apple Intelligence. It's out there. You have it. I technically have it if I upgrade my machine. And they spent quite a lot of time talking about how you can rewrite text. So you can do that now, and you can ask ChatGPT maybe in the future to do stuff.
Sure. Yeah, you need a modern iPhone or some M series computer or something like that, preferably an M4 Max.
It works on M1.
It does. That's pretty cool. Like it doesn't work on my old iPhone, but it does work on my old M1, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
We've talked about intelligence on here before. I won't say anything bad about the Dingus app this time, although it hasn't been improved. I did notice one new AI feature that I totally didn't notice. A friend had to notice for me and told me about, but I've been enjoying. You should upgrade to 18.1, I believe, for this feature alone. No, you don't need to correct your text. You don't need to change your text to a more friendly style. You know what you do need to do? You need to go into your photos and do smart erase on everything. I have been cleaning up all my memories. So now in the Photos app, there is a clean up tab. If you go into the photo settings, and then you can choose clean up.
Okay.
The UI, I think, is atrocious, but roughly you just kind of outline / fill in. It's a little vague on what it prefers, outlining or filling in. And it'll just do, I forget what Photoshop calls this, but like a magic erase where it tries to replicate the background or look for things. It is using some kind of foreground detection kind of thing. For example, there was a fence in a picture, and it refused to remove the fence because it was a repeating pattern. But there was a fence post, and it was more than happy to remove the fence post. So it has a thisness.
How do I do this? How do I do this? I click on a photo.
Go to a photo. Go into the settings for the photo, the little lines with the circles on them.
Okay.
And then in the lower right, it should say clean up.
Nope.
Do you not have intelligence?
I'm on 18.1, but I have an iPhone 11, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. You're going to need an M4 Max.
I thought that this was a everybody gets it feature, but I don't get it. Oh, I see.
No, the sparkles are only if you spend money. Sparkles are for buyers.
I guess I could open it on my Mac if I upgrade.
Yeah, I'm curious if it'll be. I haven't actually tried it on the Mac. I've been running the latest betas, but I don't use the Photos app that way. I'm curious if yours does this. So if I have a picture of, say, a deer if I have a picture of a deer, it'll tell me what animal species it is. I mean, it's a deer. It's kind of obvious, but it's fun. I've been trying to zoom into different pictures of different birds and things like that. It's called Lookup. So there's Cleanup and Lookup, and they're both Sparkle features. And I'm curious if you have Lookup.
I had this thing where if I long press, let's say I have a picture of Millie.
Yeah.
That I could at some point, it would be like, this is a dog. And then I think it would be like, this is an Australian cattle dog.
That's exactly how the UI works too.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there is already you can separate the foreground object out of a picture and turn it into a sticker or something like that. Now when you do that, it'll do a lookup thing. It'll use its identification technology. And it's a little bit funny as you're just scrolling through your photos, the little eye icon to give you information about your photo, it'll turn into a little sparkly thing if it pre-detects that it can recognize something.
I don't know.
Once again, sparkles are for
no sparkles.
M4 Max users only.
No sparkles. No sparkles. If I tap, okay, so if I tap on it, it's like this is a pet, and that's about it. But it doesn't give me anything else on it. Yeah, I just I don't know. So I'm torn because I primarily use Windows. I have my MacBook here, but I primarily use Windows to do gaming on, to do Xbox gaming. I'm playing No Man's Sky right now with my buddy Jesse. Yeah, and I have Game Pass. I have this stuff. I need to try it on my MacBook. My fear of replacing my Windows machine with a Mac is that I just do so much stuff on my Windows machine. I love Windows. Like I'm just a Windows diehard, and I've never had a Mac be my main computer. My Mac has always been a work machine or a side machine, which is what it is now, mostly for development. So I do use it, but my main driver is this, but it's so small.
Well,
the Mac Mini
is so small. You could you could buy it and use it as an Apple TV. Just plug it into your TV and use it as a little media device.
It's so tiny. So
tiny. I'm curious if my Apple TV is bigger than it's going to be. It's going to be ridiculous spending multiple thousands of dollars on a hockey puck.
I think the Apple TV is smaller. It's 4 by 4 by 1.2. So it's a little bit bigger than a Mac Apple TV.
Okay, good.
All right, Frank. I'm indecisive on purchase. Thinking about it. Are you actually buying anything?
I'm actually buying it this time. We have talked about me upgrading my machine on this show far too many times. We have put the poor audience through it far too many times.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. I told you I totally missed the Apple events when they first started. But at the same time, I was shopping on the Apple website for a new Mac because I was getting so frustrated. If you listen to the pre-show with the Patreon people, I was getting so frustrated with my USB hub situation. And I'm just like, I need to just spend some money and finally get my computer situation in good shape again. So I had already made up my mind a week ago that I was going to buy a new computer. So luck just has it that a decently affordable machine has come out. So this is thankfully a very no-brainer purchase for me. It's just how deep into my wallet do I want to dig? For you, I totally get it. You're a Windows guy. It's fine. You don't want to spend $3,000 on a Mac. But $599, I get it. I get why you're debating.
I know. If I could just $599, I could do all this stuff. That'd be pretty great. Just want all right. Well, I'm going to debate. Let me know exactly what you buy. Send me a screenshot. And let us know, folks, if you're interested in buying any of these new Apple machines, or if you've installed Xcode, GitHub Copilot, or using any of the new Copilot features. Let us know. Go to the mergeconflict.fm. There's a contact button. Additionally, more importantly, you can go to the youtube.com/@mergeconflict.fm. That is where you'll find us, all the pods. You can subscribe on anything that you're listening on right now, so you get up to date every single time we put out a new podcast, which is every Monday morning Pacific at midnight. Like as soon as the day starts, we're there. Even daylight savings time. The computer, it figures it out for us automatically. It's happening. Hopefully everyone survives their daylight savings time. It's the day before the election, so go out and vote. And we'll talk to you later. All right, have a great one. So until next time, I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.